because we're going to switch in English because we have a very special guest. So this is Boris, and I'm sitting here on a couch together with Jörg.
Hallo, und neben mir and right beside me there is the one and only
Gilbert.
Tada! Außerdem per Mumble zugeschaltet sind
Heinrich Lenhardt
und Anatol Locker.
Right. So, Ron, what brings you to Germany?
Well, I'm over here talking about The Cave, which is the game that is coming out in January. So I'm just kind of over here talking to people and having a great time.
That's good. So you had some Glühwein already at the Adventsmarkt here? Our local version of grog?
No, I don't think I had any.
No. Fabian said he gave you some. Okay, we'll have to check that out.
I think he did.
Yeah, so apparently by tomorrow you should be in Nürnberg, which has the famous Christkindlesmarkt.
Right.
So you'll be getting the full local December flavor while you're here.
Good.
So, and I guess that though you're here in Germany to promote your new game, which we're going to talk about, people might be asking you questions about stuff you did earlier in your life, right?
Yeah, they do.
They do. But we're trying to avoid those games as much as we can in this podcast. So we're not calling out any names like Maniac Mansion or Monkey Island.
Right. Yeah. Let's not utter those at all. No, I'm more than happy to talk about Monkey Island and Maniac Mansion. Those are two games I'm extremely proud of. So I'm more than happy to talk to them about as much as anyone wants to.
So what is The Cave then?
The Cave is this interesting, quirky little adventure game about these 7 characters that go into this sentient talking cave, kind of in search of things they're looking for, things they desire, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a...
And are all 7 going there at the same time?
No, you get to pick any 3 of the 7. So it's kind of like Maniac Mansion.
I was just saying, I have seen that before.
Yeah, I only had one original idea, and that was it. So I'm just keep rehashing them. No, you have these 7 characters, and then you pick any 3. Then you go through the cave, and there's lots of puzzles that involves the 3 characters and switching, characters and solving, player puzzles with multiple characters. And I think, with Maniac Mansion, when Gary and I were designing that game, having those 7 characters and, having them be able to solve different puzzles, that was really an afterthought. It wasn't something that we thought about and just really kind of, wrapped our head around in the game. And, with The Cave, I've always wanted to kind of revisit that and kind of do that correctly, the right way. So in The Cave, you have the 7 characters, but each character has their own story. There are, puzzles that you solve different ways with different characters. And there's, entire areas of the cave that are themed very differently for the different characters in the story. So I've really just tried to embrace that whole 7 character thing, a lot more than, we kind of were able to do in Maniac Mansion.
Speaking of the cave, what flair does the cave have? Is it like in Colossal Cave? Is it Zorky, or are we going in another direction?
Well, when you're descending this cave, you're going to come across an entire amusement park down there. You're going to come across a gigantic missile silo with a nuclear-tipped missile that you can launch. There's a pyramid embedded in the cave. So I think this is, your typical cave.
Any pirates in there?
Yes. Yes, there is actually. Yes.
Monkeys?
Yes, there is a monkey.
So you had 2 ideas, and you had to put both of them into this game.
There's 1 pirate and there is 1 monkey in the cave.
How many heads does the...
Sadly, he only has 1 head.
So.
Yeah. I try to explain to people, it's an adventure game. And it's kind of interesting because, when Maniac Mansion came out, people were saying that was not an adventure game because it had characters that animated and there weren't big blocks of text that you read and there was no parser that you were typing words into. And, it kind of got the same thing that the Cave is getting, where people go, well, that's not an adventure game. But I think, when anyone sits down and they play the Cave for more than like 5 minutes, they totally understand that it's an adventure game.
So would you say that design decisions or how you're creating this game, that is driven by today's technology, or so that you'd say this is something you can finally do now that PCs can do this and that or so, or is it just something that naturally came across? Is it more artistically or technology driven, that specific kind of gameplay and how the mechanics work?
Yeah, it's not really technology driven. A lot of it came from just wanting to kind of relook at adventure games a little bit and, go back and figure out, well, what do we not really need anymore? What were we kind of hanging on to that we don't need to hang on to? And I think, with Maniac Mansion, I think the parser was one of those things. It's like even, King's Quest came out, which was a graphic adventure, yet they still couldn't let go of the parser. They felt like they just still had to have that parser. But with Maniac Mansion, we just got rid of the parser. And, you just kind of clicked on the different verbs and stuff. And so really with the Cave, it was going back and kind of looking at, what do we need and not need? And one of the first things that I thought about was, do we really need inventory? Because inventory in adventure games, I think kind of at the end it became this big bloated thing where you were carrying hundreds of items around, presumably stuffed down your pants, because I don't know where, Guybrush carried all that stuff. But you had this huge inventory, and I think inventory was also, it became a crutch for game designers, because, now I could do a puzzle and I didn't really have to come up with a clever solution for the puzzle. All I had to do was bury the item you needed just in your inventory of 100 things. And then it was just scrolling through that list of 100 items going, oh, well, there's the ball of twine. I bet maybe I could use that to solve the puzzle. And that's kind of a crutch, right? That's not the right way to think about puzzles in adventure games. So, with the Cave, there's no inventory. Well, there is actually inventory. There's a 3-slot inventory, right? Each character can carry one thing at a time. And really, that was a challenge, but a lot of fun from the game design standpoint, because we really had to design all of the puzzles so you were only carrying those 3 things, but also not make it that you were just using the floor of the Cave as your inventory, where you just drop everything on the ground and then you'd have to run back and get it again and use it. So it really caused us to kind of look at the design and really just focus in on the puzzles and the objects and, those sorts of things. And that was, it was kind of liberating in a way, to not have that. And then the other big design thing with the Cave that I wanted to do was just really kind of hone that moment-to-moment gameplay. And if you go back to classic adventure games, they were fairly slow-moving. And, you play a game like Monkey Island, there were times when you would just stare at the screen for 10 minutes, as you were just trying to puzzle through in your mind, okay, what do I need to do? I've got this, I've got that, I could go here, I could do that. Got this weird rubber chicken with a pulley in the middle. Obviously a red herring, this can't be used for anything. So you do that. But I think gamers today, there's just so much pulling at our time. And I think people want things to kind of move forward at a really good clip. And so what I wanted to do with the Cave, especially since, on the consoles, you're using controllers and stuff, is just make that moment-to-moment gameplay fun. So it's not a platformer. You're not running around trying to make jumps and making sure you're getting double jump in the right spot, but just being able to kind of move and run and jump. And even when you're sitting there thinking about a puzzle, if you watch players, the character isn't standing there. The character is just jumping around the screen, which is really kind of half of the player's brain engaging with just jumping this character around the screen, and then the other half of their brain is like solving the puzzle.
One final, more or less Maniac Mansion related question. If I remember it correctly with Maniac Mansion, because we were basically treating new ground and everything, I guess at that point in time, you didn't think this would create a whole series of games for Lucasfilm and would create with Scum like a system where you would do a lot of games. So now looking back at the cave, do you have in the back of your mind thinking, this could start another 6 or 7 games that will be done with a similar system? Or is it so specialized that you say, most likely nothing, it won't work with anything else?
Well, I think the type of adventure game that the cave is probably could. And the cave, is leveraging off of all of the technology that Double Fine has. So, Double Fine has an engine, that they built Brew Legend with, and they built Costume Quest with it, and they built stacking with it. So they have a really powerful, very, very mature engine there. And so the cave was just all built in that engine. So I didn't have to create this entire adventure game engine at the same time I was trying to create a game, which is what I did with Maniac Mansion, which is why I almost got fired. Little known fact. The game took so long. So, I think the cave, is leveraging off of all of the great technology that Double Fine has. But I think there is something just about that type of adventure game that I found really neat, in being able to design like that. So, I think if it really resonates with them and they kind of like to see an adventure game in that kind of format, I think doing more adventure games, not necessarily cave-based adventure games, but more adventure games kind of using that same, no inventory, but more visceral movement, I think that could be a lot of fun to explore.
Still, I believe that many listeners to this podcast do care a lot for the cave and would like to hear hours in talking about it. But what they really want to hear from you is, hey, have I told you that I will do the next Monkey Island? So what's between you and doing another Monkey Island apart from the small little thing of not having the rights right now?
Yeah, there's just that one small little thing about not actually having the rights to do it.
So that's it? So you would immediately do another Monkey Island?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's a complicated question, right?
It's like the Chinese proverb, be careful what you wish for,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. It really
so somebody drops the
is.
Rights to Monkey Island right into your lap tomorrow. What are you going to do?
I'm screwed.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely screwed. No, I think, there's a couple of facets to that. I don't own the rights to Monkey Island. Lucasfilm owned all those rights, and then Disney just bought Lucasfilm. I'm sure they bought Lucasfilm for the Monkey Island rights. They say it was for Star Wars, but it was probably for Monkey Island. So they bought that. So now the rights to Monkey Island are owned, by Disney. But the thing is that if I was going to do another Monkey Island game, the important thing for me is I want to have complete control over it. It's I don't want to do a Monkey Island where a bunch of people from marketing have listed these 5 bullet points that I need to do, and we really need to make sure that it's first person because, first person games are selling a lot better, and you need to make sure you do this, and you need to make sure you do that. It's if I'm going to do another Monkey Island, it's I want it to be more of a personal venture for me. I'm just going to make Monkey Island 3 the way I want to make Monkey Island 3. And I would definitely do it as old style point and click. Despite all the things I just got done saying about the cave and the future of adventure games, I think Monkey Island, though, it has to be that old point and click style. It just does. And so I think I have so many weird criteria like that the only way that I would really be able to do it is if I just owned the rights to it. Because I would just have to have the freedom. And I think if Disney came to me and said, hey, make another Monkey Island for us, I think by the time I got done outlining all these things that I wanted to do with it, they probably, wouldn't be interested in doing it.
But that's saying that there probably won't be another Monkey Island.
I don't know. I don't know.
It was funny because when we chatted in Seattle, you were kind of, more or less joking that the problem with talking with Lucas is that, if you have a new president every couple of months, so you have to figure out who is the person to talk to. And just like that, all of a sudden, the whole company gets purchased by Disney. So are you kind of up to date? So would you know who's in charge now, who to talk to at all?
I'd go right to Mickey Mouse. I would not mess around with anybody but Mickey Mouse. I think you have to go right to the top, I think, if you're going to talk to them about it.